I have an exclusive interview tonight with the Crown Prince of Iran. He's the son of the late Shah of Iran, who was overthrown in 1979 when the Islamic Revolution took over that country, and the Ayatollah Khomeini took it over and turned it into a slave country, a country that at the leadership level hates the people of Israel and wants to wipe us off the planet, wants to bring about a second Holocaust. But the Iranian leadership doesn't only want to wipe out Israel. Israel's the little Satan in their eschatology, in their end time theology. The United States is the great Satan. So what makes this interesting, why am I doing my show on the 75th anniversary of Israel about the Crown Prince of Iran? Because he came to Israel this week. And we have an exclusive opportunity to sit down with him here in Israel and find out his story. Why does he love Israel and the Jewish people? Why did he decide to come here to Israel, the first Iranian leader ever to do so? What was his meeting like with Prime Minister Netanyahu? What is his message to Israel and the Jewish people? But also, what's his message to Christians, to evangelicals? His message to the TBN audience. Let's talk about it with the Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi. Your Excellency, thank you so much for sitting down with the Rosenberg Report on TBN. I don't know how much experience you've had in communicating to Christians, but we're very interested, both obviously in Israel, but also the possibility of peace with Iran, democracy in Iran. Let's start with, why did you come to Israel? This is a big deal. It's a historic moment. Why did you even want to do it?
For over 4 decades, we have had a regime that from the very beginning planted the seed of hatred, of violence, of instability, of antagonism, of interference, of using its proxies to conduct, from their point of view, a mission of exporting an ideological religious revolution to the detriment of the Iranian people, and from the get-go establishing discrimination against religious minorities and all sorts of opinions. And for 4 decades, my fellow compatriots have suffered the consequences, but not just them, many in the region and beyond. So net-net, instead of going in the direction of a path of conflict, a path of uncertainty, of nuclear threats, of terrorism, of radicalism, the Iranian people have nothing to do with that. On the contrary, we are peace-loving people. We want to be able to have friendly relationship, cordial relationship with every nation, anyone on the planet that recognizes our sovereignty and independence, and work together towards peace, towards progress, towards modernity. That's the demand of today's generation, who have suffered all these years under this regime. Why Israel? Because Israel is, after all, a country with a democratic structure that understand how pivotal it would be under a different Iran to be a strategic partner, which is good for stability, for the region, for the betterment of relations. So it's the antithesis to what we currently have.
But is it a risk to your movement of trying to build an opposition democracy and freedom? Is it a risk to come to the little Satan, as it were, to Israel? I mean, the clerics literally say this every week, death to Israel, not to mention death to America. Is that a risk to your message?
On the contrary, it reinforces the narrative that, unlike the regime, the Iranian people want to have peace, want to have cordial relationship, want to enjoy the very same liberties and human rights values that democracies around the world have. They want to be part of that equation. They want to be part of the world that is evolving in that direction. They want to make sure that just as much as you have a guaranteed freedom of speech or religion, say in the United States or any other democracy, we should have the same for us. So all of our faiths, all of our opinions, all of our rights as human beings are respected and guaranteed by the rule of law and by the Constitution. It's not something alien to us. Let's not forget that before most of the Western world as such existed, Cyrus the Great, 25 centuries ago, was the first one to introduce the very concept of human rights and liberty of faith. We are the children of Cyrus.
Yeah, that's a big message of yours. And it's fascinating to me because both as a Jew on my father's side and as an evangelical follower of Jesus, I'm intrigued, right? Isaiah, the prophet, said specifically by name, hundreds of years before Cyrus was born, that there would be a leader, God would choose him, his name would be Cyrus, and he would liberate the Jews and rebuild the temple. And then he did. I'm not aware of any Iranian leader, though, who's ever thought, yeah, that's a good thing, right? But that's the tension between, inside the Persian history, between the Hamans, who wanted to annihilate the Jews, and Queen Esther, who God used to intervene. But I think, we've lived for so long thinking there's a Haman in charge of Iran. These people they don't want to just get rid of Israel. They want to literally destroy us all. So we're not used to an Iranian leader, the son of the previous Shah, the king of Iran, even wanting to come here, much less talking positively about rebuilding the temple and liberating Jews. That history is so important. Why is it important to you?
Because don't look at me and why I'm here. Look at hundreds of thousands of young Iranians within the last 2-3 years gathering in front of Cyrus's tomb in Pasargad, in the Shiraz area in Iran, protesting against the regime and chanting slogans about their heritage, about their sense of national identity. And it somehow ties back to what I just told you. So it's not just me, it's the voice of millions of Iranians who have been
Cyrus the Great remains great among the Persian people today?
It is a sense of civilizational and cultural and national identity that transcends everything. I mean, whether you are a Christian or a Muslim or a Baha'i or a Jew, or if you are a Kurd or a Nazari or a Baluch, that sense of national identity finds itself back in the narrative of a proud nation with a proud history and with something, and how much it contributed to Western civilization. Thomas Jefferson incorporated into the Constitution of America, or the Declaration of Independence, inspired very much by what Cyrus the Great had said.
Amazing, yeah.
So if you look at that and the perspective of where we stand as a nation in the context of these very ideals and values, as opposed to a regime that has been warmongering, has been planting the seed of hatred and disdain, and it's night and day. And it's really, even if you go back in time in terms of the Zoroastrian values of Ahura Mazda versus Ahriman, Ahura Mazda being the god of light and truth and justice and what have you, and the darkness and the evil and everything, is evil versus light. That's literally how we look at this regime as it impacts us Iranians at home, but how much destruction it has created in terms of it's basically seeing the light in peace, in harmony, in coexistence, in good relation, in tolerance, as opposed to the contrast. And part of my message to the world is us Iranians want to have cordial relationship with the world. And why not start with the most obvious, which is where Israel stands in terms of being threatened by a regime that calls for its disappearance. Right. Whereas me knowing that, among other things, the best experts in managing water issues happen to be Israeli experts. And what kind of a relationship with this country would be mutually beneficial, and to my country, instead of this narrative of hatred and anti-Semitism, whatever it is that is out there, and that's part of the whole picture.
That's great.
Coming up next on the Rosenberg Report, Joel asks the Crown Prince of Iran to describe his message to Christians in the U.S. and around the world. How would followers of Jesus Christ be treated? What freedoms would they have if he were in power? Find out when the Rosenberg Report returns. Stay tuned.
You had an opportunity to sit down with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. What was your impressions of him? What did you say to him? Did you talk specifically about your idea of the Cyrus Accords? And would you describe that a little bit to us?
I hope one day we would be able to address all of these things of how post-regime, there are so many opportunities, and that goes without saying. But the immediate focus is on the now.
Okay.
And the now is basically, you have millions of Iranians every single day all over the country protesting this regime, sending the world every signal of, listen, stand on our side for once after 40 years. whose side you choose to be. We've been shot in the eye. We've been arrested. Our daughters are being poisoned in schools. How far do you want to let this go? There is a chance right now, historical moment, not just from the point of view of Israel, mind you, but for the whole free world to understand the significance of putting an end to a regime that has been the root cause of all the problems we've been facing, to liberate a nation that will be the guarantee of stability and will eliminate every single problem that you see today, from radicalism to extremism to terrorism to the nuclear threat. Everything ultimately touches. And what's the alternative? And from Prime Minister Netanyahu to any other world leaders or legislators that I've been talking all these years, and particularly lately, I said, look, the alternative is right in front of your face. It's a liberated nation that shares the very same values that you have, but you insist on continuing negotiating with those who are part of the problem to begin with. How do you expect to find a solution out of that?
Do you support the idea of this nuclear deal that President Obama and now President Biden have been trying to encourage the Iranian leadership to pursue? Or do you think that's a fool's errand? I don't know what your perspective is on the nuclear negotiations.
It's always a matter of saying whether it's the gun or the finger on the trigger. Can they be trusted, regardless of what they sign? And how many times have they been dubious? It's just lack of trust at the end of the day. Even if you have a so-called agreement, what does it really mean? Mm-hmm. And what does it achieve? And what was the last time you tried the result that you obtained? More money released to a regime that, rather than spending it on starving Iranians, have been reinforcing their proxies, whether in Syria or in Lebanon.
So let's talk about what's your message to Christians around the world? Obviously, the Bible is filled with. We just talked about the Cyrus portion and Queen Esther, but even the wise men who came to Bethlehem to find the King of the Jews, they reportedly came from Persia. These were astronomers who were watching the stars. So Persia, Iran, that history is actually very deep in the Bible. And while there's been negative issues, you're right, in biblical times, there's also been wonderful warmth. So I'm just curious, what's your message to the Christian world specifically? How can we be praying for your country?
I think the best guarantee for all faiths to have the liberty to exist and freedom of religion and an end to any kind of persecution has to have a guarantee of the rule of law and democracy and a secular system that separates religion from governance as a prerequisite to democracy. But it's in that context that you can coin and guarantee freedom of religion and or speech. Any religion. It doesn't have to be Islam or Christianity or Judaism or any other religion. It's the universal principle that ties us all together.
It's almost impossible for us to imagine, almost. Iran, which has been Shia, almost apocalyptic Islamism or nothing. It's hard to imagine a world, but you lived in that world.
Because I think part of the message is you need to rewind your watch pre-Iranian Revolution. Okay. As a teenager, when I was growing up in my own country and I studied there, and I left my country when I was about 17 and a half years old to come to the United States to train in the Air Force Base in Lubbock, Texas. But I just want to give you an image. What teenager doesn't dream to play with the national Iranian soccer team and its players? And we did. But why I raise this? Because, when our national team was playing, among them were people of all different kind of extractions, from the south, from the north, with different faiths and ideology, and we were all Iranians. Nobody said, oh, you are from this region, you're from that region, or you're a Muslim, or you're a Jew, or you're a Christian. That's the Iran pre-revolution. There were Jews in Iran, there were Baha'is in Iran, there were Christians in Iran. Now you see that as a result of this regime, the first wave of people who had to leave, who were immediately persecuted under this new ideology. Jews that had to leave Iran, Baha'is who had to leave Iran, and so on. How many converting out of the faith and became Christians in Iran and are being persecuted?
We hear millions, but we don't know for sure.
So it's all about, not just about the Christians, not just about the Jews, not just about the Baha'is, or any faith, or even atheists. Liberty, guarantees of everyone's right. That's really what is my message to the whole world, whether it's the Christian community. Why? Because having that freedom to practice your faith with no fear has to be edged into a guarantee of law and the rule of law. That's what I'm calling for Iran, for my country. So the very same liberties that the free world enjoys under those guarantees, that's what we want for ourselves. The kids who are fighting in the streets today, despite knowing that they may end up in jail, tortured, or even executed, understand the cost to achieve that. And so the message from everybody who believes that this is the way to go have to today tell the Iranian people, you're not alone in this fact. Your message has been heard, received, and understood. And it is imperative, it is a moral obligation from any human being or persons who can influence their decision makers, their lawmakers in every country, to say, put an end to this injustice. We demand that you implement the policy that will put an end in that, not by you doing it, but helping the Iranian people overcoming. We need your support. We need you to be on the right side of the equations. No movement of nonviolent civil disobedience to put an end to unwanted regimes has been successful in our modern day world without the tacit support of the free world. From Lech Walesa in Poland to Mandela in South Africa, and the same principle applies to Iran. Look beyond this regime. Understand that the solution to the problem is not cutting a deal with the current regime. It's to empower a people who inherently are against a regime that it's its DNA. They cannot, in any form, coexist with the world and the free world and its values, because for them it's black and white. Their success is based on your ultimate destruction. That's the way they think. You cannot have a solution of compromise with them.
Coming up next on the Rosenberg Report, what do the biblical prophecies tell us about the future of Iran? And could God be raising up Reza Pahlavi like he raised up Cyrus the Great to help fulfill those prophecies? Don't miss the dramatic conclusion of tonight's show as Joel describes these prophecies to the Crown Prince of Iran. Next on the Rosenberg Report.
Two quick last things. First, there are prophecies in the Bible, Ezekiel 38, 39, but also Jeremiah 49, that really talk about the judgment of the God of Israel against the leadership, not the people, but the leadership of Iran. God actually says in Jeremiah 49, I'm going to judge those leaders, and I'm going to put my throne in Elam, the ancient term. That's a fascinating thing for those of us who believe that Jesus is coming to Jerusalem. But still, at some point, it means that he loves Iran so much that it's going to be a center of his heart for the world. One of the things that brought down the evil empire of the Soviet Union was the prayers of millions and millions of Christians all over the world, and certainly the rebirth of Israel in 1948 after almost 2,000 years of exile, the prayers of millions and millions of Christians. Not only, right, there were other people working hard, but I want to encourage you, first of all, thank you for speaking on TBN, on the Rosenberg Report, to get your message out to the evangelical world. But I want to encourage you to do more, because I think that's an alliance that could really help. But I don't think they know your story, and I don't think they know your cause. They just hear all the horror stories coming out of Iran. They don't even know that there is a leader, somebody who's trying to start for many years, mobilize, but it's just not a message I don't think that's come to our team yet. I'm trying, and I'll do more, and I appreciate this time.
Of course. Well, I believe in this principle. Some people may think it's cliche, but as they say, together we stand, divided we fall. So the message is togetherness. Message is solidarity. Good. Solidarity of all faiths, understanding that collectively we can prevail upon evil. And this regime is nothing but evil. Yeah. But the solution is in the peace-loving people who understand liberty, who understand tolerance, who respect different viewpoints, and they can live in peace together under the same roof. That should be the obvious need, because we have so many challenges in our world today. Putting it into perspective, a tiny planet in a solar system that is part of 100 and billions of stars just in our galaxy, in a world and a universe where we are just nothing at the end. And is it really going to be while we're on this planet and we have, environmental issues, global warming? I mean, so many issues that affects people's daily life. Is there time for hatred and bigotry and injustice and discrimination? As a human race, what do we have to show for at the end of the day? And today's generation understands that, and we can do so much more in the positive, in a positive spirit. And that's why we need unity, because sometimes we have to fight together against injustice. This is a time when the Iranian people need the most amount of world solidarity in their support, because they are on the right path. And all we are asking as a nation, be on the right side of history this time.
I was so touched to see you at the Holocaust Memorial the other night. You won't remember it, but as you were leaving, I had a moment just to say to you that I'm an evangelical Israeli, and I'm praying for you, praying for the people of Iran. I didn't expect an opportunity to be able to say that to you in a slightly calmer moment, but thank you. With the threat of a second Holocaust coming from the Iranian regime, for you to honor our 6 million who perished in the last evil genocide, I want to thank you. And I want to give you a book right now. This is a nonfiction book I wrote about my meetings with all the leaders in the region: Mohammed bin Salman, Mohammed bin Zayed, King Abdullah in Jordan, President El-Sisi, and Prime Minister Netanyahu. So it's my story as an evangelical. How, I've got no power. I'm not a billionaire, but somehow I've had a chance to sit with these leaders, and now with you. Right now, your country's an enemy, but I pray for the time that'll become an ally.
Thank you so much.
And I want you to know I'm praying for you, and I'm going to encourage millions of Christians to do the same.
It will happen. The question is not whether it will happen, but when it will happen. The whole point is the sooner it happens, the less cost and more destruction. So I hope that we can expedite this so yet another generation of Iranians are not victim of these atrocities.
I pray that you're right. Your Excellency, thank you for
so
your
much.
time. I'm honored to meet you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Look forward to tracking your story as in the days and weeks ahead.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.